Kumbaya, my lord. This isn't just kumbaya talk. Purpose drives impact. Looking to empower up your day? Tune in to Evolve Together with Empower People on ESPN Richmond, powered by MikeKingBiz. Join me, host and Empower People founder Tiffany Joy Greene, MBA, as I bring dynamic leaders, change makers, and entrepreneurs to share their journeys, challenges, and successes while driving their purpose to drive positive impact and empower people. Empower People is an organization that provides education, connection, and support to mission and purpose-driven leaders to drive positive impact and empower people. Catch us every Tuesday at 5 a.m. on ESPN Richmond and join Empower People today. What are you waiting for? We even have a free membership. That's right, free. Visit www.empowerpeople.org. That is MPWRPeople.org. You can also visit us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Evolve together. Welcome to Evolve Together with Empower People, the show that brings you inspiring stories, expert insights, and transformative advice on ESPN Richmond, powered by MikeKingBiz. I'm your host, Tiffany Joy Greene, founder of Empower People. Each week, we dive into topics that are rooted in how purpose drives business and positive impact. And this week is our infamous Empower Hour. You can think about it as our open office advisor hour. So join us as we connect with dynamic guests, explore innovative ideas, and empower you to evolve and thrive in every aspect of your life. Stay tuned because together we can achieve greatness. Let's evolve together. To learn more about Empower People, you can visit www.empowerpeople.org. That's MPWRPeople.org, or find us on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. #Empower People. So now let's get on with our Empower Hour show. And if you can believe it, it is December 2024. So I know this is going to shock everybody who's listening on Facebook, on ESPN, and going to be watching on YouTube. But I think we're going to be talking about end of the year stuff and the new year starting. Who else is doing that, right? I mean, we're really unique.
To do that.
So, but before we do that, I'm going to give a moment to Stacie and Chris to introduce themselves. If you could just take 30 seconds to just introduce yourselves, that would be fantastic. Stacie, I'll start with you because I'm choosing the person who's most dressed like me.
Hi, I'm Stacie Goodman. I am the owner and founder of Origamic Solutions. We're a operations management consulting firm focusing on small and mid-sized businesses. We are here to provide education, advisory, and full consulting services depending on your needs. And we help you level up with love.
Love that. And Chris?
Good morning. My name is Chris Mayfield. I'm the founder of a small boutique consulting firm in Richmond, and we focus primarily on leadership and organizational development. Pretty excited. We're bringing on a new learning management system that is going to connect employers to employees in a way they have never been able to before, and is super affordable. So we're excited about that new launch, and we're looking forward to a big 2025.
I have a feeling, Chris, that in 2025, we're going to follow up with what you just said with, but wait, there's more.
That's right. There's always more, always more. That's why I wear my Yoda hoodie.
I think in a former life, I probably facilitated some infomercials, but I don't know. We'll leave it there.
Hey.
So let's do some reflection. Let's do some reflection. So let's reflect upon 2024. Let's start off with the positive note, right? You know, people will say, give me the good news or the bad news. We're going to start good. So tell me about your biggest wins for 2024. Why, share one, maybe two. Why do you think they were big wins and what you learned from them?
So I guess I'll go first because I usually do.
Tradition remains alive.
I was like, there you go. For Origamic Solutions, we had two big swings this year. One was we rebranded. And so that was a monumental lift. Thank you, Tiffany, for your assistance. And I hired people. So I went from one at the end of last year, which was me, and a very, very fractional intern to now I have 5 on staff. So that was a huge swing. This last quarter has been a big push for us. So I was able to hire an old colleague and mentor, Jim Blizzard. And so he came on and he is spinning up more of our technical side where we're able to focus on helping small businesses maximize their use of their Microsoft 365 package. So get better return on investment there. And then how to use AI from the business perspective. So not from IT. A lot of the AI you see is around IT side. And this is more of how does that help the business user. So that was a big swing. I got an executive assistant, which is a first step for growing. So when those two things happened, we got a lot of work coming in, and so it really changed the dynamic of the team. Tim Pisani is still leading our small business development, and so we're partnering and with people like you all, and some other Empower People members to help grow the business. So it really was a big shift. It was the vision board, looking back on my vision board from last year, a lot of things in some smaller form, initiated. And so looking forward to 2025 and continuing to grow that.
I have 2 things I'm going. One is, I think, Stacie, didn't Tim, and I know that's not because I'm that good. I think I saw it on LinkedIn. Did Tim start with you in September of last year?
No, he started with me. Technically, he was billable in December. He came in late November.
Got it.
So,
because I saw something on LinkedIn. That's why I was thrown. Like, you know how they do the work anniversary announcement?
yeah.
What do you think was there a turning point, a pivot point that occurred this year that ramped up that growth when you reflect back?
The big swing for me has been bringing Jim on and bringing Judy, my executive assistant. Both were pivot points because they brought one new skill sets. They both brought a lot of energy, entrepreneurial, self-motivation, things of that nature. They already knew what they kind of needed to do and how to come in and hit the ground running. That's not to say that Tim didn't contribute tremendously, because he did, and that's what I needed as a business owner. So as a business owner, you have to love things, and I've heard this, but it didn't click with me until it happened, because it's just the way it is. When you level up, new opportunities that you weren't ready for before start to appear. And so this is forcing me to continue to level up as a business owner, but it's also leveled me up in a personal manner, I guess, more confidence, more conviction, those intentionality, those types of things. So bringing them on really pushed that lever forward. With Tim, because it was just me and him, we could pace. And we made the movements and set the foundations. We did a lot of work in the second and third quarter in particular, building the website, at least the foundation of the website, building the foundation of our social media, building the foundation of our marketing. We had our first expo. So we did a lot of preparatory work, he and I, to get there. But because we had done that work, when Judy and Jim hit, we were ready to go. So when we hit that expo, and I took Jim in there, and Jim's very extroverted. And if those of you who have been around here, listen, I am not. So I like to sit in the back of the room, and Tim makes me sit at least in the middle of the room. I'm very good in small, intimate settings. But Jim is very extroverted, and so he was he and Tim were running the rooms and, bringing people, and I would talk to them, or they would. So when that hit, now we have 3 people doing sales and not just 1 or 2. And then we also have now, 4 or 5 people executing. So it just made it exponentially grew that. Having Judy as an EA, which we just launched some LinkedIn posts about it, the importance of the EA and having that extra right hand. She keeps, with everything that's going on, she's able to keep everything focused for me. And so that helps me to be more productive. So what you hear and people saying these things actually is true when you execute them. Now, does it feel like you're swallowing a watermelon when you do it? Yes, it's slightly uncomfortable. But once you get through that first, I would say 60 to 90 days of, transition, you figure out your rhythms and you figure out how to work. And we're having, like with Judy, we're having much more effective and efficient meetings because she's holding us to our agenda and things of that nature. So it's a nice balance of personalities and skill sets that have just made the boat go faster. So
I want to provide a little favor for those who are listening in and are acronym challenged, because I am.
I'm sorry, executive assistant.
Thank you. Because there are people, what's an EA?
What's an EA? Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between an administrative assistant. That's just somebody who kind of answers the phones and does the office type work, Then the executive assistant, she comes with a college degree and experience in a business function, but so she does both elements. And so right now she's, I'm able to utilize her skill sets at a higher level, being more almost like a chief of staff, but also running. She leads the marketing sales division right now, so that Tim and Jim and I can focus on execution. So there is a difference if you're evaluating an executive assistant versus an administrative assistant. And there's a lot on YouTube that if you're looking to go that route, I would recommend you listen to the YouTube videos on how the executives and how people prepare for an executive assistant or an administrative assistant to come on board. And there's a wonderful resource in New Kent that I use. So I'm going to give them a little shout out. It's called Lift Resources, and they do virtual assistance. Judy happens to be in town, so she does come in, meets with us in person, once a month. But for the most part, we're able to do things virtually a lot smoother than I had anticipated.
I think it's important you shared that too, because somebody might be, well, if there's a difference between an executive assistant, administrative assistant, you hear all about the VAs, virtual assistants out there. Can an executive assistant be virtual, like a lot of the VAs? Or
yes.
Yeah, so you're saying yes, and so that's good for people to hear.
It's just a different level of skill set and how they use it. It's no different than just working remote. But some of the virtual assistants that you see are like, they help with cold calling, or they have a very specific use case on a virtual assistant. They're a lot cheaper, and they're usually, a lot of them are in a foreign country, but they're very focused on one particular function. An administrative assistant is there almost like a personal assistant in a professional environment. And then the executive, definitely they cost more, but they also bring, broader capabilities.
And based on that, I think the takeaway there is, well, listening to you is depending, you got to really know what you need to know who to hire. Which, if Brian was here, he'd be saying that word for word.
And I did a full inventory, and I've had clients do this as well who have been looking at getting an executive assistant or an administrative assistant. So Michael Hyatt has a book, and he has you look at all the tasks that you do. Do you have a passion for them, and do you have a proficiency for them? And depending on your yes, no, you get a drudgery zone, a disinterest zone, a distraction zone, and then a desire zone. And you figure out where those activities happen. And then the drudgery and the disinterest are the ones you delegate as soon as possible so that you're focusing on your strengths and passions there.
So that sounds like you're doing the, what's her name of Does It Bring You Joy? It also reminds me of that. Like you pick up
the closet lady. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to point to Chris because Chris is the one that now I go to and I'm like, who's this pop culture icon movie? Whatever. Do you know who we're talking about? What's her name? Marie Kondo?
Kondo. Yeah, I was going to say starts with a K.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chris. It popped in my head as soon as I asked.
No,
So, Chris, how about you?
I'm glad you're finally caught up on your 80s pop culture.
I'm not caught up. I have my list. I still don't watch it.
Technically in the 2000s, I think. So, we've moved on a couple of decades.
Yeah, no, some of us have. Yeah. So my two really big, not moments like aha moments, but kind of things where I kind of drug myself forward a little bit. I think one, I'm a little bit of an old-fashioned kind of guy, and change sometimes comes slowly to me. So up until this last year, I was always just resistant to integrating AI into my packages and my work products. I have, over the last probably really in earnest last 6 months, it's kind of my first stop now. So instead of AI being my last resort, it's kind of my first stop. And so I've found multiple ways to integrate AI, particularly into business development, that kind of freed up. Of course, you don't want to outsource business development to AI, but there's a lot of tasks inside of BD that you don't necessarily need a human to do, and AI does a fantastic job. And then you use your human functioning brain to determine what it means to you as an organization or as an individual. So I've really kind of flipped that. And what it did early on was allow me more time to be in contact with people that were actually going to use my product or service rather than just kind of blindly fishing out there and hitting a bunch of events and hoping for the best. So I use AI a lot to keep my finger on the pulse of the community needs, specifically leadership development and organizational development needs. So that has been a significant change. So you may remember, well, nobody here remembers firsthand, in the early 1900s, there was this big initiative to push electricity to every home in the country. And there were massive demonstrations in the streets about how electricity was going to be bad for your health, right? And that was me in AI. I was certain that AI was going to crash my business and it was going to, wipe out life as we know it. But I've overcome that in the last 12 months. So I am no longer AI resistant.
May I interject, because I can witness that you have actually gone through that transformation, because I know Chris, who has fully embraced the AI. So as he's talking, I'm like, who is this person you're talking about? I have not met him.
Yeah. I have, I am fully embracing AI on multiple fronts. And what I also found out is I'm not nearly as smart as I thought I was, right? I thought I had this whole game down pat, and I'm like, okay, AI, what am I doing wrong? And out comes this 50 things that I should be doing that I never even imagined I should be doing. And now I'm trying to work through that list. And And it's really been kind of great because it keeps me learning, helps me build my knowledge networks, connecting to people for purpose, and rather than just, hey, I know this guy down the street and he kind of does this thing. You should go talk to him. Well, now I have a purpose driven, if you will, reason for collaboration and connection, rather than just connecting and connecting first and then trying to figure out how to collaborate, right? That's kind of backwards. So you figure out what it is you need, then connect for a purpose, and then collaborate towards a common goal or purpose. So that another reason that another way that AI has complemented my business rather than hurt my business. You listen to all the naysayers, they're like, oh, AI is going to be the end of the world. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's just going to be different. So figure out what those differences are, figure out what they mean to you and your business for the next year, and then get to work. And it's really no more complicated than that. Surrender your ego, surrender what you think you know, and then go find out what it really is. And it really changed my mindset, and really changed how I operate. So that's the first one. That was the first kind of big change of 2024. So the second one, for the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, 5, 6, 7 years, somewhere around that. I forget how long it's been. I've always been an in-person, or maybe even sometimes on Zoom, kind of coach and consultant advisor, right? And I did, fairly well. Okay. I'm not starving to death, which is, something to be said for an entrepreneur, right? When you're not, say, counting your pennies to put gas in your car to go to your next business meeting. So, but this year, I'd say, geez, maybe with the new AI emerging and all those things, how can we reach more people at a lower cost, increase revenue, and increase profit per client, right? Which is always huge. A good friend of mine says, well, you can either get more clients and work harder, or get better clients or different kinds of clients. So those are kind of your contained choices. So what we settled on in 2024 was a robust LMS, learning management system, where we can engage more people on specific topics of their interest. So we can offer a little more variety. We can offer services to more people at once, which means we can have larger clients. And it opened up the small pond kind of into a big ocean, because now we can reach out to more organizations, because we can operate primarily virtually using AI assists also. So it really has changed the way we do business. So for 2025, what I don't want to do is recognize that I'm in the infancy stage of AI, and how it could change my business, and really keep that pipeline for AI and its use open, rather than hitting one place and saying, oh, this is where I'm comfortable, and let me just go with this and I'll probably be okay, right? I'll probably not starve to death in 2025, but it's not going to serve the purpose of growing my business if I do that, if I allow myself to plateau and live there for too long, right? We want to live there and get it right for a while, but we don't want to stay there. So that is my focus for 2025.
And again, for the acronym challenged folks like myself, LMS stands for Learning Management System. We all have a habit of using acronyms when we're in the biz.
That's right. Well, the world runs on acronyms.
Yeah, in some industries, far, far too much.
Well, I come from the military, so...
Yeah, so for me, I'd be like A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
We have an acronym for acronym.
I'm going to share what I learned, which is very different than what you two learned. I'm going to say it's probably what would be lumped under like a soft skill. And it's something that's been much of a hard lesson and applies to business and personal, but I think this year I finally got it, which is I now understand what is a me problem and what is a you problem. Not meaning the people I'm talking to right now, but like what is for me and what is not for me. That is transformed 2024 from the beginning till the end immensely. And I feel like that's going to be an amazing lesson to be able to take into 2025 because, we as human beings, we think we're one way in business and we're one way in our personal. And the truth is, we're one person. Most of us are one person. Let me rephrase that. Most of us are one person. And so what we think is not an attribute in our business, but is in our personal is probably not accurate. It's leaking both ways. So for me, yeah, I think that's probably been my biggest lesson that I learned this year. So now let's talk about the mistakes we made in 2024. I don't like to call them failures because a failure means you quit. Nobody's here quitting. So what are the things, mistakes, decisions you're like, oh, well, that probably wasn't the best decision as retrospective, but this is what I learned from it. What would you say what you learned in 2024 that way?
So it wasn't a mistake in what I did or chose, but it was a learning on being more prepared and understanding the impact of the decision. So, and that impacted cash flow. Um, when you have savings or retained earnings, right? You have a piggy bank and you have a safety net. And when you do that, you can try things, right? Because to Chris's point, you're not going to starve, right? Business is okay. You have the safety net, so it's fine to try things. And you may stay in something longer than maybe you should have stayed in. But I made a decision. When I made the decision to hire Jim, um, I knew it was the right decision for the business, but it's almost like it's the same as you decided you're going to um, get a brick and mortar, office, right? So there's expenses that come up front with that, and with with consulting, you get paid, you do the work, then you invoice, then you get paid. So you have a lead time of potentially 60 days that or more that you have to account for and make payroll for. And so when I made this choice, and it happened to be that I've made the choice with two people, not just one, then it created a cash flow situation. Now we're not underwater, but we are much leaner. And what that required me to do is now make much more intentional decisions and really evaluate what I was spending my money on, because every penny counted at that moment, and until we come out of this now, like, we've been able to have Jim working and everything like that. So it's just a delayed situation. But the other part is a lot of the work that I do, it invoices every 30 days. And so what we're looking at is how do we diversify where the invoicing happens so that the money starts flowing in on a more steady basis, either twice a month or 3 times a month we're receiving payments. So so it just brought in a different made a very different perspective when we grew quickly. And that was very different than what, I was fine because I still had that piggy bank there. So now I'm just having to make more strategic and intentional decisions. And I think that's a good growing point for me. It was, sometimes the harder things, they don't feel real good when they're going through, but they have a lot of lessons that you can learn from it. And that was just one of the the pieces that changed the way I look at my business now, because it is important for me to make sure that my team members have a stable environment and that they don't feel, anxious or anything like that. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not transparent with them, but because we're all in it together. But yeah, that was probably the biggest, oh boy, that, hit.
And I know you advise people on, not that you're a financial advisor, but in operations, I know
Right.
you have talked about cash flow a lot with.
And not to get over your skis. Yeah. And, and I didn't intentionally, do like, it wasn't, oh, I'm taking on this and I'm going to take on more and more and more, people. I have two people that I really want to hire right now. And they just, we've talked to them and we want to bring them on, but we can't until, we get everything stable. And that is for their benefit as much as it is for our benefit. So I do take the lessons that I, tell people, we throttle back, but when we have to. But I also learned that even though that one decision was going to be, maybe a challenge for a short term, the long term benefit is worth it. So you got to think about things not just in the short term, but also, where is this going to be in 6 months? The whole, everything's going to look very different. So it's just a small temporary pain point potentially, but it's well worth it, the catalyst of the growth. It's an investment, and investments sometimes, you invest in a house, you put a big down payment, your piggy bank goes away. And you feel a little stress on that for a little while, but then everything settles down, and business is no different.
And a lot of times too, you do have buyer's remorse because of it, but you usually get out of that, right? Once
Yeah.
things settle down, you're like, oh my God, should I have done that? What do I do? And the buyer's remorse is a real thing, but you know what? You come out of the other side going, no, that was the best thing I could have done. It's just that
Right.
risk feels scary. It feels so
And
scary.
if you're risk averse or you're risk cautious, yeah, that can hold you back sometimes. And for me, I mean, those of you who know me, I'm a based Christian person, and that actually made that stronger for me. So it helped, you had a personal growth. That was a personal growth for me as well.
That's good. Okay, Chris, what's your what was your mistake of 2024 other than talking to me?
All right. So first off, it's not a mistake, right? I make lots of them, but there's that old saying, uh, fail often. So I in 2020 as I was going into 2024, I said, what I've been doing for the last 5 years, I'm seeing that diminishing return, right? So what I was doing wasn't being as effective, and I was slow, as I already admitted to change, and because I didn't want to change because I was comfortable with what I was doing, I let the decline in sales go probably a little bit further than I should have before I made a change. Even though I had my KPIs, I knew what was wrong, right? I knew where I was coming up short. I knew what I should be doing that I wasn't. I knew all of those things, right? And since we live in a fact-free world now, at that point I chose to ignore my own facts, right? I chose to ignore my own reality. That second phase of a coaching cycle is, what is the reality? My reality is that my revenue was dipping, and I knew why it was dipping, but I just didn't want to do what I needed to do to reverse that. Whether that was laziness, whether that's incompetent, whether that's a lack of ability or a lack of education. I don't know, maybe it was a little bit of both or all of those things or some combination of all of those, I'm sure, is what it was. But so I really stopped at one point, almost stopped looking at my KPIs, right? And because I didn't like what they were telling me. So I was ignoring my own data. And I knew I was. So I was making a conscious decision to sabotage my own business because I was ignoring the business analytics. I was ignoring trend lines. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't wait until like June to discover this, right? I figured this out in like March or April. So once I said, okay, I'm just not going to allow myself to self-destruct. I'm going to do something. So that's when I started to do those things that would improve my business. But it's the complacency and comfortableness or comfort of having a system that is at least moderately successful, but then allowing it to grow beyond its usefulness, or to stay beyond its usefulness, not grow beyond its usefulness. So that's that vigilance that I kind of had to relearn in 2024 early on, but I managed to pull that one out. Lesson learned for me, right? You take the time to do that strategic plan and those operational plans and set up those KPIs and those lead lag indicators, and then use them, right? Follow them, and trust the process. So that was my big takeaway. And then the other failure, very related, was don't wait too long to adapt and change. When your processes are no longer meeting your strategic goals, look at those processes, but don't do it in a vacuum. Reach out to other people who are either doing what you're doing or something similar that might give you an indication of what a course that you could take. So in my case, I actually did something that I don't like to admit that I have to do occasionally, but I did reach out for help from some colleagues that worked at VCU and got some good sound advice. And so thankfully I turned that around. I expanded my knowledge network, kind of pulled myself out of that dip and out of that mental block, right? That's on me. My own mental block about using my own data and my own performance indicators. So I don't know why I decided to do that, but I just did. But fortunately, I pulled out of that pretty quick, pretty quick, I guess. But when it starts to really hit the bottom line is kind of too late, right? When you're starting to see those negative effects. So what I ended up having to do, quite honestly, is go back and look at my lead indicators and adjust my lead indicators to give me a little more predictability on my lag indicators. So those were kind of my two struggle points this year, and how I tried to work through those, to be determined on whether that was ultimately the right move or not. But I know ignoring the problem wasn't going to solve it. So at least I'm doing something, right?
And I think this saying, I don't know when you said that one saying, the one that popped my fail forward, always fail forward.
Yep. Fail up. Yep. Fail forward. Yep.
My biggest lesson, and it occurred right at the beginning of the year, and I'm mad at myself because it's advice. I wasn't following my own advice. Like anybody else, I would be like, don't do what you're doing, which is really simple. I took people's word. I didn't get things in contract. So I had gotten a couple prospects who verbalized, we're doing business. Like very clear with the team, very, like it was very clear verbally. Like there was no ifs, ands, or buts. It wasn't like I misread or I was like, oh, we're like 95% there. No, like it was like verbally handshake committed without a contract. And didn't happen. And so for me, I'm like, when well, first, I'll be honest, like at first I was mad at them. Like, I can't believe they did that. But when you're really mad at somebody else, you're mad at yourself. Because I'm like, why did I let myself get to this point? Like, that's on me. Like, I shouldn't have been. And so I was making sure like resources and everything was, ready for this, right? And so what I did was I mean, it didn't kill the business, but it certainly took away from momentum. It took away, there's a big opportunity cost to that, right? So, lesson learned is what I would have said anyway, but I guess I needed the experience to learn it, which is it ain't over. It's not a done deal until there's a contract signed.
And a purchase order.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
I need a purchase
usually for
order.
me, well, to be honest, like I'm always honest. Hey, I'm trying to get that out of my vocabulary because it's so silly to say, to be honest, like when am I lying? But it's also when the money, like that first invoice has been paid.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, that was a big lesson learned. And unfortunately, it wasn't just with one. And it all seemed to happen at once. And I have a friend, and we always talk about things like, and we come at it from different perspectives because we have similar beliefs, but also different beliefs. But in essence, is like the universe is going to whisper to you something, and you either pay attention or you don't. But then if you don't, then it's going to talk to you, and you're either going to whisper, you're going to listen. Eventually, it's going to yell at you. It might smack you across the face. So apparently, I needed to be smacked across the face. So I got it.
You can stop now. I'm staying now. Thank you.
And that all happened. That all happened during like the first half of the year.
Mhm.
So like I'm not encountering it the second half of 2024 because I'm like, I got it. Not gonna make that mistake again. And people who know me I say like, if I'm talking about a prospect, I'm like, well, we don't have the contract. It's not because I really need you to know that. So I'm hearing myself say that. So what are we're at 9:51, so we only got a few minutes left. So let's share, Stacie and Chris, share 3 tips that you would offer any small business or nonprofit executive director for 2025. What are 3 tips you would advise them on to make 2025 a strong year?
I would agree with Chris on exploring AI capabilities. I was with him I don't know about this, but in the last few months, especially with Jim kind of showing me what it could do and then starting to utilize it. For those who are Gen Xers in the listening, it's like going to the library and picking up a lot of books and you're reading through pieces and then you're trying to put all the puzzle pieces together. AI does it faster by giving you a summary from 4 or 5 different sources and then you can work from there. So at least if you're just using Copilot for, or Chat GPT for something small. The other use of that, we're using it is search AI and see what it comes back on your own company. Google searches are a little bit different because of the whole SEO, but we were doing it and it came back and it said we were an IT company. Well, we're not an IT company, so we're revamping our website to make sure that with the results that come back on AI match what we would want our potential clients or customers to know about us. And so we're not the only company that's doing that. There was a couple other in the chamber that were telling me they're doing the same thing because AI is probably going to become the new search engine, superseding the way the Google search and being in those kind of search engines we've been using for a few decades now. So that would be the first thing. Second thing is stay on top of your finances. I see so many small businesses that really are not understanding just their bookkeeping and accounting components. So if you're there, then start leveling up to the CFO. Start learning how to look at those KPIs and other indicators that a CFO would be looking at, engage with maybe a fractional or get some education in that space. So the finances are important. And then the last I would say is look at your returns on investment. Look at where you're making profitability and make those decisions based on what is best for your company based on data as opposed to your instincts and what you think you know. Because what we found out is what we thought we know, AI told us we were wrong. So there are things you can do. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. And I would say the last piece for 2025 is commit to staying out of your comfort zone. Keep growing, keep learning. If you're comfortable, you're probably starting to decline in one way or another. It doesn't mean your business is declining, but you're not staying ahead of the curve. It's like people tell you, if you put money in a savings account and the interest rates are, or the versus the value of the dollar, you might be losing money by sitting on it as opposed to investing it. It's the same thing with your time and your resources. Keep educating, keep looking for mentors. If you don't have a mentor in your area or somebody look for one online. That was one of the new things I adopted this year is I found people who are way ahead of me, but if you look at some of their YouTube videos from the years past, you saw their progression. And so I picked up where I was and then continued to use their learnings that they were sharing, just like we're trying to share our learnings. So I have found YouTube to be much more of a valued asset for learning. So I would encourage them to do that.
Chris?
All right. I have 3 that you should write down. Are we ready? So we were actually just talking about knowledge networks, right? That's what, the YouTube and talking to colleagues. But knowledge networks, we had those external knowledge networks. We had those internal knowledge networks. And a lot of people are really good at going and talking to colleagues, but not internalizing that and saying, what processes inside of my business do I need to change because of this new information? Or we'll change a piece or a part of what we do based on the new information without really understanding what it means to the business as a whole, right? Because if I add on a market based on what or I subtract a market based on what I'm learning from my colleagues, well, that changes, my marketing, my advertising. May change their budgets. It may change a lot of different things. So that, and I hate to overuse this process, or this term, but the process improvement, the continuous process and improvement based on both your internal and your external knowledge networks. If I was going to focus solely on if I was going to say what is the most important thing that I need to do in 2025, that would be it. We have a whole wealth of expertise and knowledge available at our fingertips. Why not use it? And then when we do get it, how does it impact the entire organization, not just this one piece? And then formalize those knowledge networks. Find out where your business could use some bolstering and go be intentional about building those networks. So it's one thing to say, I'm going to talk to my friend who's got a very successful consulting firm and see what he does. Great, but let me go talk to my friend who's got a very successful consulting firm and who is doing this piece of that better than I am. And go have a very intentional talk about that one thing rather than in terms of general conversation. Maximize what you already have, right? So hiring people is tough, it's expensive, it's all those things, and it's also a risk, right? Because you may think on paper this person is the best thing since sliced bread. They may show up, do a bang up job for about 40 days, and then fall off the face of the earth. So what I would say is exhaust and maximize what you already have before you make heavy investments in unknowns. So that's not to say that you shouldn't grow or that you shouldn't hire talent, that you shouldn't do all of those things, but make sure you've exhausted everything that you in terms of hiring avoidance, right? Before you pull that trigger to hire new talent, because not only do you have to worry about salary, right? You got to pay them for before that revenue starts coming in off of their what they're earning, but you also have their personal life that you're going to have to deal with, right? You're going to have all those things that come with people. We love our people, but all those things that come with people now come into play. And then I already touched on continuous process improvement. Just have a system, no matter how basic or how elaborate that is. Find a system that you use when you acquire new knowledge. Put it through the same rigorous system, and then see what it means to you. And that's my 2 things.
We can tell your colleagues are barking.
My colleagues are barking like crazy.
We don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to leave with one tip, which is from my experience, especially working with clients, my own personal experience throughout my career, is I think having mentors and knowledge networks are really important, but they're only as good as what you know for yourself. You got to know who you are, what you want, because opinions fill in the blank are like, opinions are like fill in the blank. Everybody's got one, right? So you can get this feedback from anybody, and if you don't really know what your guiding star is and what your purpose is, you may be making decisions based on somebody else's path. And sometimes as an entrepreneur, you're going to do something that a lot of people are going to think you're crazy for. Right? But that may be the best decision that you've ever made. And you got to be willing to stand on your own. And the only way you can do that is to truly know what it is, what your purpose is, and what the purpose of your business is, and to make sure they're aligned. And that will be your guiding star. So if you don't know that, you will allow others to create it for you, which will lead to bad decision making. So as you're thinking about 2025, my first homework assignment for you is really to know what is your purpose and your business's purpose before you even set out what your new goals, KPIs, or anything else. Or the world will dictate what you do, and it may not be what you want. So we will end it there. This is the last Empower Hour of 2024. If we had, kazoos, maybe some balloons, that'd be fantastic, but we don't. But I want to thank you, Stacie and Chris, for your insights today. I'm really loving your outfit, Stacie. For those who can't see, we're basically wearing the same outfit, except I'm wearing a jacket. And Chris, who is dubbed a Hope Dealer, is wearing a hoodie, because that is also what he's known for. That's the image I have in my phone, is a hoodie for Chris Mayfield. There's a reason for that. So
he's authentic.
That's right. He stands out in a crowd. So thank you for tuning in to Evolve Together with Empower People here on ESPN Richmond, powered by MikeKingBiz. I'm your host, Tiffany Joy Greene, MBA, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. We hope today's episode inspired you, provided valuable insights, and empowered you to take the next step in your purpose-driven journey. Don't forget to connect with Empower People on social media, share your thoughts, and join the Empower People community, where education, connection, and support is offered to mission and purpose-driven leaders to drive positive impact and empower people. So until next time, keep evolving, stay empowered, and remember that together we can achieve greatness. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the next episode of Evolve Together with Empower People. Let's evolve together.